A stroke is a life-changing experience. It can have a powerful impact on emotions. This is because the brain controls everything in the body. The changes stroke survivors may face can seem daunting at first. In the aftermath of a stroke, patients often feel a flood of emotions.
This knocked me for a loop. Sometimes it gets me very depressed, but I try not to dwell on that depression or anything like that.
It's a lot of things that lead to a ton of frustration down the road. It's very hard to do things that were very easy.
Strokes also affect your emotional ability to, I find myself going off kilter from time to time, and it bothers me.
Just keep thinking positive.
Emotional reactions may include anger, sadness, grief, a sense of loss, anxiety, frustration, and the inability to cope with so many changes. While these emotions may be disturbing, they are also a normal human reaction.
It's a loss. Whether it's a loss of the use of an arm or a loss of speech, they're going through kind of an accelerated, sometimes grief reaction. And as we see with people that grieve, they go through denial, anger, depression.
We find generally when they first come in, they're more scared. You know, it's a different situation, different nurses, different doctors.
Anger for sure is something. Why did this happen to me? Why am I not able to do these things? Why am I not myself?
Especially if they've been in acute care and they've seen other stroke survivors kind of progress more quickly than they do.
Anxiety related to will I get better? Will I be able to return to the things I was doing before?
So it depends on what happened to you, but it has the same effects and the same despair, because you're taking away something that you're used to having.
Well, I think the first part of dealing with that is actually listening and giving the patient the opportunity to voice their concerns, giving them the opportunity to, express exactly what their fears, their anxieties are. And they're hoping when they go to bed that when they wake up the next morning, it will be the start of a new day and I can get up and walk. And when they realize that it takes more than a day, it takes more than a week, it can be quite dismaying. It can be very, very sad for them. So having someone there to express their concern to, having somebody there to say, you know what, you took a step, you did a good job, keep going, hold your head up. I think that, they heal from the inside out also.
As nurses, I think my primary aim is to provide comfort and care, making a patient feel comfortable and cared for, and somehow to empathize with what they're going through.
When something like that happens, a patient comes across as being a little bit down, low, possibly depressed. It's not for me to keep to myself. If I'm the first person to notice something like that, that's going to not only affect that person's intake of food or outlook on life, that's going to impact how they do in therapy and ultimately how they end up doing when they leave Providence. So it's important for the entire team to be on the same page. Mrs. So-and-so is feeling low. What can we do about this? How can we increase her motivation?
And that's really what makes a good team, to look out for those little signs and kind of take somebody by the hand and kind of walk them through those different almost evolutionary changes towards eventual healing. Just like grieving itself is a healing process. It may not be much fun to go through, but it is a process that ends up in a healed individual, spiritually as well as physically.
There's also a term that we describe as emotional lability, where the person may cry quite frequently, and the crying may be unrelated to sadness or what's going on at that particular time. And often a person can start laughing uncontrollably, and it may not be related to the situation at hand. And they also may be angry when in fact there's really no particular reason at that time to be angry. And that's a term that we call emotional lability or labile mood. And I think it helps people if that's explained to them, that's actually a direct response to the stroke, because otherwise they're left wondering, well, why am I crying all the time? And I often say to patients, well, often you have good reason to cry, but if you find you're crying a lot and uncontrollably, well, that's directly due to your stroke. And I think the fact that they're given information helps to calm them a little bit and normalize the emotions.
Feeling depressed is normal for stroke survivors initially. However, if these feelings persist, get help from a healthcare professional.
If we get into the clinical depression, then luckily now there are some very, very good medications with very few side effects that we can then implement, and that will help the person.